Game mechanics are often tried and true stuff that people lean on, and that's not a bad thing. But sometimes somebody breaks something out that's truly innovative and impressive. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanq's 10 recent gameplay mechanics that absolutely blew our minds. Starting off at number 10, it's Angerfoot, the flash kickers. When all you have is a foot, everything's going to get kicked. That's Angerfoot, a simple game about punting everything in sight with your mighty boot. It's essentially a first-person Hotline Miami where you're busting into rooms, kicking everything in sight, and then desperately trying to survive because one stray hit can mean instant death. It's a very difficult game, even when it's being slightly more forgiving than its inspirations. Like, you can actually absorb a bullet or two before dying, unlike in Hotline Miami, but they do at least give you a few bonuses to make things a little more fair. The great equalizer are unlockable sneakers, which grant various upgrades and improvements to your guy. Most of the kicks do basic stuff like give you more ammo after kicking a guy or let you revive mid-mission or something like that. But there's one incredibly wild pair of shoes called the Flash Kickers. They're completely absurd, and I have to highlight them right here. As a mechanic, it's kind of shallow. I mean, you get shoes as you progress through the game with upgrades. Nothing mind-blowing about that. But the variety and shape of the shoes that you eventually start to unlock is what makes this feature so ridiculous. With a name like Flash Kickers, you might assume that you're doing Guile's famous move from Street Fighter, but no, it's more like the bicycle kick from Mortal Kombat. You move forward with a flurry of kicks that are ridiculously powerful on top of being gravity-defying. I don't know, maybe it's a first-person perspective, but it makes this ability seem even more ridiculous than it already is. The way you say stock rigid, but your legs are going nuts from the bottom of the screen, it just cracks me up, man. It's so absurd I could do it all day. At number 9 is Black Myth Wukong. By the final chapter of Black Myth Wukong, I don't think it's unfair to think that you've seen everything the game has to offer. I mean, for the past 30 or so hours, it's exactly the sort of game you'd expect. Large, mostly linear levels where you're running around on foot, standard Souls game progression, fighting your way to the next bonfire save point, and taking on many bosses that get in your way. It's a formula the game sticks so closely to for the majority of its runtime, and while it does it well, it's nothing we haven't seen before in an action game. Then the final chapter drops, you defeat the first boss in the area, and suddenly you're flying through the air on Monkey King's famous somersault cloud. I'm dead serious that when I say that this new travel mechanic just blew my mind when I first saw it. It's visually incredible, and it transforms the last leg of your journey into this quasi-open world, which is the sort of the thing usually reserved for the start of a game rather than the end. It was a bold choice for saving the cloud for the end, but it's one I really respect. Rarely do you see something this impressive and fully featured come in so late. Like, developers want to show off their tech and do something to wow people right from the start, but as far as this story goes, it does make sense to save it for the end when your guy's finally starting to become the Monkey King once again. It's an exhilarating and freeing feeling being able to fly around this area, going wherever you want and taking on bosses in whatever order you'd like. The rest of the game was so linear and restrictive in comparison, so the freedom provided by the cloud feels pretty significant. It's such a drastic change in gameplay, it makes me wish the entire game was on the cloud, but maybe they're saving that for a sequel, I don't know. But even as just a one-and-done thing, the cloud is an awesome mechanic and totally unexpected for this genre. And number 8 is the Plucky Squire, the manipulation power. The Plucky Squire is one of those games that thrives off being surprising. At first, it seems like your usual storybook-inspired game, sort of like Paper Mario or something, where the story elements are mostly there for flavor. If that's all it was, then this world, it'd still be a pretty impressive game. The art alone is extremely charming. The basic presentation is super appealing. Things get a lot more interesting, though, when you complete your quest early on, encountering the evil sorcerer and easily defeating him. That's when the game reveals its full power as your little guy's ejected out of the picture book and you explore the 3D world outside the book. That alone is impressive. The 3D's surprisingly detailed and accomplished for an indie-looking game like this. It's a game with fantastic 2D and 3D art, which is not something you see every day. After finally making your way back to the book, the game's real mind-blowing mechanic is revealed, the manipulation power, where you can enter and exit the picture book at any time and manually turn the pages of the book to instantly transition between scenes. It's not just an easy way to fast travel, you can flip back to cutscenes also, which can sometimes contain items or even puzzle solutions, so even the cutscenes are important here. It looks awesome to do too, because the presentation's just stellar, and as a mechanic it's so clever and inventive, even if the actual puzzles aren't actually that taxing. Combine the ability to enter and exit pictures with the power to pick up words and use them to change sentences, you got a pretty clever little puzzle game that manages to be impressive while not being overly obtuse or challenging. This is something that just works as spectacle, and it doesn't feel like it's not enough. At number 7 is Split Fiction, the split itself. The mechanics of how Hazelight Studios manages to seamlessly transition between split screen and single screen action has always been quietly mind-blowing from an artistic and technical perspective. But what's usually so impressive about these mechanics is how invisible they usually are. Unless you're really paying attention, you're barely going to notice when the screen combines with both screens and makes that ubiquitous line through the center disappear for certain segments. It's an impressive trick, but it's not a flashy one, at least not until the end of Split Fiction, where they decided to flex about as hard as humanly possible. One of the craziest final sections I've seen in a game. Just from the word go, the final chapter is amazing. The basic concept of the game is you're bouncing around between fantasy and sci-fi, but here it's both. Sci-fi on one screen, fantasy on the other, and it's all streaming seamlessly. Each version of the world is the same, but different. Certain puzzle solutions can only be seen on one side of the screen, so players have to work together to get through these segments. That's just the start, though. Once the villain reveals himself, the split mechanic starts going completely off the rails, and that line suddenly becomes a hazard, moving around the screen and obscuring one player's vision if both of you don't move in perfect sync. Then it starts moving on its own, splitting into even more worlds. The fourth wall is completely breaking down at this point. It's glorious to behold. The game becomes this kaleidoscope of worlds, spinning around and shifting like crazy, as the one part of the game nobody thought would turn on them becomes the enemy in the final chapter. It's not the only crazy fourth wall breaking moment going on in this final battle, but it's the most mind-blowing because who expects the line in the middle of the screen to become the bad guy, right? It's a super impressive sequence that keeps on going, tops itself over and over again. Moving on to number 6, it's Skin Deep, the explosive decompression. I don't think I'm stepping on a line saying Skin Deep is an exceptionally weird game. At its most basic level, it's sort of like Void Bastards crossed with like an immersive sim. And also there's cats you have to rescue. The goons you fight off have heads that pop off and they can float to revive stations unless you grab their heads and flush them down a toilet. It's a weird game. Crazy in-depth mechanics all over the place too. It's pretty impressive just for the level of detail and potential interactions that are available. For this entry though, I'm gonna stick with something that's relatively realistic, but rarely a thing you see in space games. See, in Skin Deep, there's windows on the spaceship. This being an immersive, mechanics-driven game, you can smash through the windows on the ship, sucking any unlucky enemy out into the vacuum of space, along with yourself. Thankfully, you don't need a spacesuit. You got this third lung and you can breathe in space. I think I've made my stance clear on the weirdness in this game at this point. The mechanic is super satisfying, though. It's awesome to clear a room just by breaking a window, and it works both ways. From space, you can do it and break into a room from the outside and catch any unsuspecting dope on the other side unawares. You can get trapped in the void or pull a lever and seal the breach immediately and deal with these guys in a different way. There's a lot of different possibilities, like really a lot, but that doesn't make it easy or anything. Sure, you can stun a guy with electricity or give him a sneezing fit by throwing pepper on him, but then you actually need to take them out, which involves jumping on their backs and ramming into them whenever the surface is nearby. I don't know. It's not the quietest option, but hey, it's effective. I mean, there's way more bizarre mechanics to be found in Skin Deep, but the thing that makes this game kind of mind-blowing is the details, the way various objects interact with each other and make a truly systematic game where all kinds of chaos is possible. It's great and all, but sometimes you just want to avoid it, dude, you know?
done.
At number 5, it's Tank Head, the tank customizing mechanic. This epic exclusive roguelike is so far under the radar that I'm not completely sure I didn't imagine it. Seriously, I did actually have to double check this before we wrote this up to make sure the game is real. That's Epic Store exclusivity for you, by the way. If it's not on Steam, it might as well just not exist. Almost a shame, because it's a pretty interesting game with a really impressive central mechanic. So usually in these types of mech or vehicle action games, you customize your ride on a separate screen. You can only do it between missions, and relying on clunky menus to get you through the process, it's kind of how it goes. Tried and true method, staple is genre, blah blah. Tankhead manages to innovate its own way with a system where you can, whenever you want, eject a drone from your tank and use it to explore and gather resources on its own. It's actually a seamless solution for what the usual limitations of a tank game are. And it's sort of a futuristic version of the tank crew we've all seen in movies and stuff. And it rarely gets depicted in games. The most impressive part of it is how the drone can reconfigure your tank on the fly. Whenever you find a new part, either from exploring the world or salvaging it off an enemy, you can have it manually grab it and then attach it to your tank. Armor can be removed and reattached. You can put new guns on the thing. Ammo, manually stored away on your vehicle, and then manually inserted in the ammo feed. And any repairs can be done by manually targeting a piece and spending salvage to fix it. It's honestly crazy, because it's like almost a game in of itself, and it's super slick and super intuitive and manages to feel much more immersive than what you normally see in other games like this. Most of these games still rely on power-ups and immersion-breaking elements like that, but this game makes the process of salvaging both fun and more realistic. Even if it involves a bunch of super high-tech gravity gun powers, yeah, that's not completely real, obviously, but it feels good to grab parts off a tank you just destroyed and use them to upgrade your own. In fact, it feels crazy. And number 4 is the 100 line, the Last Defense Academy. 100 endings. That's all that really needs to be said here. This game has 100 endings. And it's not like the Nier games where 99% of them are joke endings that don't go anywhere. When we say endings in the 100 line, that means entirely different story paths that often can and will dramatically alter the events of the story, sending it spiraling down new and strange directions that are not hinted at in the other paths. The game's essentially 13 Sentinels if the many insane revelations that are doled out are not from playing different characters, but from pursuing different ending paths. In the vast majority of games, your choices barely matter, but in the 100 line, every major choice that pops up can and will dramatically alter the direction of the story. I don't think I can emphasize that hard enough. There's 100 endings. This game is, in short, completely nuts, even by the standard of its two creators. You got the Danganronpa guy and the Zero Escape guy both writing for this thing, and it is like a crazy amalgamation of all their various idiosyncrasies. It's a wild ride, as long as you can accept the extremely tropey nature of the entire thing. It's definitely leaning into what you'd expect from both guys, but it manages to go some pretty wild and unexpected directions. The concept of a branching narrative with different endings is far from new and not all that unexpected anymore, but the audacity to have literally 100 endings is insane. Not all of them are full branches. They're kind of like mini branches, but still, we're talking about 100 endings that are distinct. Not 20, not 30, 100. That's insane. At number 3 is Inzoi, the 3D printer. This life sim competitor to The Sims doesn't have a lot going with the core mechanics. It's kind of a little bare bones at the moment, at least at the time of writing. But it does have a bunch of completely unnecessary extra mechanics and modes that makes people vaguely obsessed with the game. I mean, did they need a dirtiness slider for the entire city? No, but it is really funny that it's there, and I love the dedication to customization. The AI stuff isn't quite as well integrated and therefore is less appreciated. Basically anything you get out of the AI texture feature is a gaudy nightmare. But the mind-blowing thing is the 3D printer. It'll transform any flat image into a 3D model you can insert into the game world. It is, in a word, bizarre, but man, super fun to screw around with. The results are about what you'd expect for something like this. It basically takes a JPEG and puffs it up like a balloon. The backsides of these things always look wrong for obvious reasons. The game doesn't know what it's actually supposed to look like back there, so it just draws up some colored slop to make it look related to the front side of the image. But none of that matters, because being able to take these things is still pretty mind-blowing. It used to be that doing this sort of thing would be a huge pain in the ass, but now it's just done with a few clicks of the button. Sure, it looks a lot worse than if somebody actually carefully modeled and textured something into the game, but it takes seconds. It's one case where mediocre is better because you're not going to seriously use the feature. Like, you want to make a dumb thing, a bunch of dumb things, in fact, and put it all over the place in the city. For those purposes, passable is all you need. In fact, it's probably better than you need, especially with this bizarre of a game. At number 2 is Blueprints Underground. It's 2025, so if you're going to use the words mind-blowing and recent, you're going to need to include the blueprints. I'm not necessarily saying that's a rule. I don't think that's enforceable. I don't think I could make you do that if you were to make a similar list. But if you didn't, it would be quite questionable. Blueprints is this roguelike puzzle game that's often compared favorably to stuff like the Outer Wilds. It's super inventive and surprising. There's a ton of layers to dig into if you're serious about uncovering this game's secrets. What starts off as a simple random room game gets a lot more complicated, and there's deeper mysteries to uncover. But I think the most in-your-face, mind-blowing thing is encountered fairly early on. I'm talking about the underground, this entire section of the estate that's essentially blocked off at the beginning. It's hidden from the player. At first, it seems like the game is just your average roguelike. You're just doing that stuff, going through the motions in the roguelike portion of the game, drafting rooms, collecting keys, solving puzzles. As you explore new rooms, mysteries begin to reveal themselves until you eventually start opening up these new locations in the mansion completely separate from the randomly appearing rooms. This part of the game is not randomized. The underground is always the same, but it's an essential part that you have to reach room 46. It's got its own mysteries and puzzles to solve. The whole segment of the game is mind-blowing because you just don't think it's going to be there. The game's about exploring random rooms, so it's easy to assume that the house is the game, and there isn't this semi-secret second game waiting to be found. So when you open the way to these large rooms with puzzles and mysteries, completely disconnected from the mansion roguelike focus, it's incredible. Honestly, it makes the game feel near infinite when you first find this stuff. The discovery slows down, but the depth of the mysteries doesn't. In reality, finding the underground is just scratching the surface of the mind-blowing revelations and blueprints. There's also the secret of the chess pieces in the rooms, the message hidden in the pictures, the clues in the top-down cipher, blah, 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 list goes on. There's so many things that actually are super essential, but they just seem like pointless details. And while some of those might actually be more impressive when you finally figure them out, the first reveal of the underground is just something special. It's the first time you really start to understand just how deep the rabbit hole goes with this game. And at number 1 is turn-based RPG combat with real-time mechanics. The recent Claire Obscure Expedition 33 hit it real big with this mechanic. To be completely fair, they didn't invent this wholesale or anything. Elements of it have been around, but you don't see it enough, and you don't see it implemented in a game like this. In Expedition 33, you take turns with your party members and enemies exchanging blows, casting spells, doing strikes, special attacks, using potions, all your classic JRPG turn-based stuff. Except, in this game, you can't be on autopilot because you need to be dodging or parrying enemy attacks for big bonuses. What we thought would be kind of a QTE type simple system is, by the end of the game, pretty complex and becomes pretty crucial. We don't have enough time to break it all down here in the video, but essentially, if you're good at razor-sharp timing games like Sekiro or something, there's going to be a difference in how well you do at this. It's challenging, it's engaging, it's also a lot of fun. Again, Expedition 33 didn't invent this concept completely, but they implemented it in a really incredibly fun, modern way. Just good stuff all around. And that's all I've got for you today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanks.